actually going to speak now to the Shadow Secretary of State responsible for levelling up and housing, Lisa Nandy, and then we'll come back to you for some reaction because she wants to talk about mortgages as well this morning. Very good morning to you, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good morning.
I don't know how much you were able to hear about that conversation, but just reflecting on the shocking state, really, of where we are with mortgages and the warning today from the IMF that the pain's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and obviously this is having a huge impact on people who have mortgages. It's having a huge impact on people who aspire to own their own home, who've saved for a long time and have seen those dreams go up in smoke. And it's also having a huge impact on renters as well. It's pushing rents up. So it's not just that mortgages are at a 15-year high and people who are renegotiating are finding that they're hit with an extra hundreds of pounds a month. It's that this is having a knock-on effect right across the board and making a housing crisis that was already a real problem in this country far, far worse.
Yeah. But, you know, we get back, Lisa, to this. We've got a mortgage expert in the studio here, and he was saying on average 6,000 quid a year people are going to have to find, which most people just won't be able to find. But we come back to this plan, or this situation again and again, and I highlight it and I talk about it, and I still don't understand why there's not a governmental commitment to social housing and why we just can't build more private houses as well. Why are we so inept? Are we so broke as a country? Are we so devoid of planning ahead that we can't say part of the problem, and it is a massive problem, is we've got to build not hundreds of houses, not thousands of houses, but tens of thousands of extra homes in this land?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to point to the long-term impact of this and the longer-term measures that are needed. Rachel Reeves and I are meeting mortgage lenders later today, and we'll be talking about the short-term measures that we need to put in place to make sure people are protected now. But there's no substitute for getting Britain building again. House building is forecast to fall to its lowest level since the Second World War. And if we're going to find a way out of this housing crisis and this economic crisis, we've got to get Britain building again. One of the ways that we've proposed doing that is ending the taboo in the debate around the green belt. At the moment, we've got an absurd situation where the government is passing a piece of legislation in the House of Lords at the moment it harder through planning reforms to get homes built. We think that instead of declassifying the genuinely green bits of the green belt, we ought to be identifying sites like the disused petrol station in Tottenham that is classified as green belt and was recently turned down for an affordable housing development, and get Britain building the right homes in the right places, and put ourselves firmly on the side of the builders, not the blockers, which is, we've been on the wrong side of that now for far too long.
Except it's so, I don't know how that works at the ballot box. I mean, people want Britain to remain a green and pleasant land, and naturally everybody balks at that, whether we want to be condescending and call that NIMBYism. You know, green belts should be protected. If there's a petrol station on a bit of green belt, I would put it to you, we should get rid of the petrol station and make it green. There's plenty of disused buildings across the capital. We drive in every morning and we see all these empty buildings and we think, goodness, just put people in there. Why, you know, tarmac over our lovely green and pleasant land?
Well, because this isn't the green and pleasant land. The green belt, large parts of the green belt aren't green. They don't protect the character of communities, which is what the green belt is supposed to do. And what we've seen instead over the last decade is that steadily the government has been declassifying the genuinely green parts of the green belt because they're the places that developers want to build because they're far more lucrative. And what it means is that in many parts of the country, including my own constituency in Wigan, what we're getting is luxury executive housing, £500,000 homes, when average incomes make those homes far out of reach, especially for young people who then have to move miles away in order to get on the housing ladder. We think that we should take a far more sensible, common sense approach to the planning system, involve communities early, enable development corporations to take ownership of land in order to decide what gets built and where, and end the blockage in the system. We've got developers sitting on banks of land for long periods of time, watching those prices rise while homes go unbuilt. You're absolutely right that we should be bringing empty buildings back into use, but there is no substitute for building houses in this country, and perhaps that is a politically brave decision, but we make no apology for that because there is a crisis in this country. Many people are paying a very heavy price for politicians' failure to tackle it, and we're determined to do it.
Well, Lisa Nandy calls it a crisis. I would have to say it would be very hard to argue against her description. Lisa, can you explain, if you can't, I've got a definition in front of me here, what a sofa surfer is, and the reason I want you to talk about that is that I think that it's one of those awful situations where you could imagine that this could happen to you. Anybody listening, anybody watching this morning, they could become a sofa surfer. What is a sofa surfer?
Well, it's somebody who doesn't have a permanent base of their own, and rather than ending up sleeping rough on the streets, is moving from friends or family's house to house, spending a few nights here and there, but without a home to call their own. And there are already significant numbers of people in that situation. Many years ago, I worked for the charity Centrepoint, and we had a lot of young people in that situation at a time when the last Labour government was doing a huge amount to tackle rough sleeping and trying to get people into their own homes. What we've now seen is that because of this housing crisis, because of this mortgage crisis, there are far more people who are likely to become sofa surfers. So we're going to have to... sorry, there's a bit of an altercation going on behind me, I'm afraid.
Goodness me.
But there are 500,000 more people who are likely to be in that situation, according to Lichfields, which is an independent agency. We're really concerned about that, and that's why we're calling on mortgage brokers this afternoon to do more, and we're calling on the government to make those measures mandatory so that they're available to all mortgage holders and not just some.
Well, look, we'll take that argument up here in the studio. Sorry about you being hassled there, whatever's going on behind you. We appreciate your time today. Lisa Nandy is Shadow Secretary for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Good luck with your job, what you're trying to do.